Welcome into my 2021 NFL draft preview for the New England Patriots. This isn't going to be so much of a overview of all 7 rounds because I don't want to do that. It's going to be more looking at today and possibly tomorrow in the second round. So first and second round of guys I could see the Patriots drafting and some guys that I really like as fits for the Patriots. So it's going to be a mix of guys that are sort of all over the place on the draft board because really you can never accurately predict what the Patriots are going to do. They sort of zag when everybody else thinks they're going to zig, or vice versa. They could trade up still. They could trade back. They could stay put at 15. There's really no definitive plan. There's no guessing at what they're going to do. So I've tried my best to come up with a bunch of different guys from different positions that are all over the draft board. Some guys that are being projected really high. Some guys that are being projected, in the second round. The Patriots have been known to take whoever on their own personal board they feel is the best fit. And they don't care what Mel Kiper thinks. They don't care what Todd McShay thinks. They don't care what you think. They don't care what I think. They have their board. They have their numbers. They stick to it. And, recently it hasn't worked out so well. In the past, it's worked out better. So we'll see how this year goes. It's obviously a very important draft for the Patriots coming off their worst season in 20 years. And seeing Tom Brady end the year with a Super Bowl victory in Tampa Bay. The Pats have spent a lot of money this offseason trying to rebuild this team into one that can compete for a Super Bowl again. A lot of people, myself included, think that needs to start with a quarterback. Obviously, there's some big name quarterbacks coming up in this draft. Will the Patriots draft one? We're going to look at that in a second. We're also going to talk about other positions of need they might have. Wide receiver, a place where the Patriots really do need an upgrade, but have not historically drafted well at all. Cornerback, another place where the Patriots might want to look with contract negotiations being a little bit stale between them and Stephon Gilmore. And you can never discount really any position with the Patriots. Like I said, they see value. Sorry, just to check something on my feet for a second. They see value and they grab it wherever they have their mathematical formulas. And it doesn't matter what position it is, they will take that, whatever they think is the best fit on their board. So without further ado, let's get into this. But you know what? I lied there. You know what? Shame on me. Not without further ado. The big news before we get into the Patriots broke in the past hour is that Aaron Rodgers apparently wants out of Green Bay. And is he a fit for the Patriots? That's the question. Obviously, they need a quarterback. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers coming off the MVP season would be an ideal fit for the Patriots. Often people have fantasized about what Rodgers could do with Bill Belichick as his head coach. I'd love to see him as a Pat, but the hurdle is, one, the Packers don't seem to want to trade him right now. Understandable. He's just coming off of an MVP season. He's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, one of the best players in the league, without a doubt. Their backup plan is Jordan Love, who they drafted in the first round last year. He hasn't started an NFL game, so obviously he's not ready to come in and vault the Packers into, contention, the same sort of contention they would be with Rodgers behind center. So the Packers, it takes two to tango. Rodgers might want to go, but the Packers might not be willing to move him. Two, the teams that are interested, which are a lot, I think will be willing to outbid the Patriots. The Patriots, are more of a conservative organization, and I have a hard time seeing them giving up that sort of massive bounty that Green Bay would want in order to trade Aaron Rodgers. A team like the Raiders or the Broncos, who are interested as well, or even the Panthers, I could see them being willing to give up far more in terms of draft capital than the Patriots are. Now, if you want to get creative, you could talk about the Patriots maybe attaching a Stephon Gilmore to some picks, maybe saying, hey, N'Keal Harry didn't work out here, but you still a high pick a couple of years ago. Maybe you want to give him a try in Green Bay. So maybe throwing some players into that equation as well as some first round picks. But I could see like the Raiders, doing something like 4 first round picks, just getting really crazy with it. I think the most the Patriots would be willing to go is probably like 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and maybe a third, something along those lines. And I really think that the Packers are going to ultimately be looking for more and would realistically be able to get more from a team that's, more willing to part with draft capital than the Patriots have shown a willingness to do. So it's really interesting, and it certainly could shake up the NFL in a massive way if Aaron Rodgers gets traded. Franchise quarterbacks like that never get dealt, especially guys coming off an MVP award. I don't think it's ever happened in the NFL before. So it's something that definitely is going to be talked about a lot these next 3 days during the draft, as well as is Jimmy Garoppolo going to be on the move, but that sort of just got put to the major back burner with his Aaron Rodgers news. So we'll keep an eye on that. And by we, I mean me, because I don't have a team. It's just myself. But I can pretend I have a team. Hey, if you want to intern for free, by all means. So now, without further ado, let's get into the Patriots draft preview here. And we'll start with quarterback because that's what everybody is really looking at. We'll start with the guy who right now has the best odds to go to the Patriots, if you're looking at the betting odds. And that is this guy, Justin Fields out of Ohio State. I made these little handy charts for everybody so you can see. Green pros, red cons, and then the pink stuff is just their height and weight and who they are. So Justin Fields, probably a name that people are familiar with. Played as a starter for 2 years at Ohio State after transferring from Georgia. Incredibly high recruit, 6'3", 228. Let's go to the pros to start with. He's big at 6'3". Again, that's a great size for a quarterback. He's very mobile. He can scramble. He can extend plays with his legs. He can move in and out of the pocket really well. He has excelled versus high-level competition in the Big Ten. Ohio State obviously always does very well in the Big Ten, typically winning it. And he played very well against a schedule that most people will consider a difficult schedule, with the Penn States and the Michigans and the Northwesterns, the Wisconsins of the world. So it's good to see that a player plays well against high-level competition. He throws an exceptional deep ball. That's one of the best attributes. Maybe he throws the best deep ball of potentially anybody with the exception of Trey Lance in this class. He's a very strong arm, got really good touch on it, especially on those deep passes. His receivers didn't have to wait around for that ball to get to them. So a lot of nice pros for Justin Fields. Taking a look at the cons now, he has had some consistency issues. Some games he looked like he was the best quarterback in the country, bar none. Other games he looked like he was, a guy that has not necessarily figured it all out. And obviously that's something that comes with more playing time, more age. You hope that the consistency issues rectify themselves with better coaching and at the next level, more reps. Health issues. This came to light recently. Justin Fields is managing epilepsy. He's had some seizures. Doctors seem to think that it won't be any sort of problem in the NFL, but any sort of red flag medically is something to keep an eye on, especially when you're talking about a quarterback, that's going to be taken highly in the draft and with your first round pick. So that is something to keep an eye on, whether he can manage it, and the doctors say he can or not. Any sort of medical concern is something that a team is going to want to make sure that they have fully vetted out. And he has struggled in some big games. He did not play particularly well in the national championship game against Alabama. Was that a product of him struggling, or was it a product of this Alabama team just being a completely dominant force? Kind of hard to tell. He had a couple bad games against good teams. Penn State, he struggled a little bit this year. Last year in the playoffs, he threw a really bad interception to end the game. So I think that's a slight concern. not a huge one, that he struggled a little bit in bad games, because he's also played very well in some big games too. And that speaks also to the inconsistency that I mentioned above. So that's Justin Fields for you. And, he right now is, again, the guy who is the favorite to go to the Patriots amongst that quarterback class right now, and amongst Vegas bettors. He does have a connection with Cam Newton. They're both from Georgia. Cam Newton appears to be sort of a mentor to him from afar. So if you want to read into the Patriots bringing back Cam Newton, maybe it's to mentor Justin Fields as their quarterback of the future. He certainly, Fields would provide a different type of quarterback than Patriots fans are used to, because he is that big mobile guy. Brady, not so mobile, as we all know. Obviously, it hasn't affected him one iota. But the NFL does appear to be changing and drifting more towards those mobile quarterbacks, those quarterbacks who are really great athletes. And Justin Fields certainly fits the bill for that. So that's right now who the favorite is for a lot of Patriots fans. And I saw he was on the cover of the Herald today. So I think a lot of Pats fans are hoping Justin Fields ends up in New England. I think he would be a great fit here. It's just a matter of where he's going to go value-wise, right? You look and see he's been mocked anywhere from early on. He was mocked at 2. Now it looks like he's pretty clearly not going to be the second overall pick. So, but some people still believe that the 49ers are sending smoke screens and he's going to be the 3rd overall pick. So you see him that high. And then Chris Sims had him mocked all the way as the 32nd pick in the first round, the last pick in the first round. So he's been mock draft all over the place. Certainly a guy to keep your eye on for the Patriots. I think if he fell to them at 15, I think they would feel very comfortable trading for him, picking him there. But I do believe that I'm not sure that they would trade up for him, as a lot of fans want him to do. The Patriots typically don't trade up, and if they do, it's not for they try to not give up that much. And anybody who is a potential trade up partner is going to want, based off of the trade up so far in this draft, the King's ransom, that I don't think the Patriots are going to be willing to deal. So let's talk about another quarterback right now that's been rumored to go to the Patriots for a while now. Mac Jones out of Alabama, another guy that people should be pretty familiar with, as he just won the national championship. He's been a rapid riser up draft boards. He's just started 1 year at Alabama and obviously excelled. He has been getting some Tom Brady comparisons, not really fair to Brady or to Mac Jones, but it's sort of that traditional pocket passer who's really confident, very, very accurate, like one of the most accurate quarterbacks you'll see, and really commands the huddle well. He's 6'3", 214. Again, really great measurements for a quarterback. Proven winner, obviously, as a pro. He won the national title this year and an undefeated season for Alabama. Can't really ask all that much more of them. As I said, super accurate on all levels of his throws. He is a complete master of the pocket. Moves very, very well in the pocket. Those little subtle motions that throw off defenders, and is able to buy him just a little bit more time. Looking at the cons, like I said, just 1 year starting, so you don't have a ton of tape on Mac Jones, and he's not mobile. He's very slow. He's not going to be a guy who extends plays with his feet. But we've seen with Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, tons of quarterbacks, you don't have to be lightning quick to scramble in order to be successful as a quarterback. You can extend plays by being, like I said, a master of the pocket and moving subtly to extend the play just by a half second and work your guys open that way. So Mac Jones, a guy that right now is the favorite to go at number 3, between him and a guy we're going to talk about in a second, Trey Lance. The 49ers have been rumored to be really interested in Mac Jones. You can see why. Obviously, a lot of people are comparing him to Joe Burrow from last year. He had an incredibly successful year at Alabama. Joe Burrow, having the incredibly successful year at LSU the year before. Both guys won a national championship. Burrow, a little bit more athletic than Mac Jones. Mac Jones maybe a little bit more accurate than Burrow, though Burrow was, just in his Heisman year, just absurdly accurate. So Mac Jones has been a steady riser and could be, as drafted as high as 3. Again, could be someone that drops to 15 where the Patriots are right now. Another guy I could see the Patriots taking if he falls to 15, but not necessarily trading up for. Let's talk about a guy that is also one of the top prospects to be taken at number 3. This is sort of the great unknown of the draft this year in terms of quarterbacks. Trey Lance, 6'3", 224 out of North Dakota State. Looking at the pros, he is a phenomenal athlete. He has a gigantic arm. He takes care of the football, doesn't throw interceptions. Cons, only 17 career starts. He played in the subdivision level, so against lesser competition. He's got some footwork flaws that some quarterback coaches have pointed out. And he's really, because of the competition level and only playing one game this past season, because North Dakota's season they basically just had the one game to showcase him. It was canceled because of the COVID virus. We just don't know that much about him. A lot of people, say he could be the next Patrick Mahomes, and that's what everybody's looking for. The guy who has a cannon arm, who can scramble, who can hang in the pocket, take hits, really sort of that perfect quarterback robot that you build in a laboratory. That's what the potential of Trey Lance could be. But is he a product of being just a great athlete at the lower level? That's the risk you would take with drafting Trey Lance. I have an inkling that's who the Niners are going to take at 3. I think that Mac Jones is obviously is probably the safer pick, but the potential of Trey Lance, I view as the highest of anybody in this draft. The ceiling for him. I know everybody loves Trevor Lawrence. I love Trevor Lawrence too. I think he is as safe as a number 1 draft pick as it gets. But Trey Lance, just because of the combination of athleticism and that cannon arm, it just, I don't see the Niners having given up that much to get to number 3 and passing on somebody who has that level of potential. Now, there's obviously that major risk factor in that maybe he can never figure out that footwork, and maybe he's just not what he is playing against greater competition, and the game moves so much faster in the NFL than it does at that subdivision level. But we've seen guys be able to come in from that level and maintain their level of production in the NFL. And I think that the talent gap isn't as big as it necessarily once was. So I like Lance. I don't think the Patriots will have an ability to get him because I think he would go before. If he doesn't go at 3 to the Niners, I think other teams would really be excited at the possibility to draft him before he goes to the Patriots at 15. And again, I just don't see them trading up. So move on to a quarterback that I could see the Patriots taking. I don't think they'll take him at 15, but the Patriots could do that dreaded trade back that they're known for. And this is a guy that I think a lot of people have very, very different opinions on. Kyle Trask, 6'5", 240 out of Florida. A guy who's faced high-level competition and excelled. Big and strong, 6'5", 240. Again, this is a big dude. He is fantastic in the pocket. Let's look at the cons, though. He's not quick, similar to Mac Jones. He's not going to blow you away with speed in any sense. He is a little bit questionable on those shorter throws. He's got a really great deep ball, but those mid and shorter range throws that the Patriots love to run. Now with Edelman out, they're going to have somebody fill that sort of slot position. He hasn't really excelled at so far, showed that he can excel at so far in his career. Also, lack of zip on his throws, which talks to those shorter and mid-level throws. You need those to be incredibly accurate and fast. He's got the big arm, but not necessarily the ability to get zip on his throws. So I think some people look at Kyle Trask as somebody who could be the steal of this draft because he looks just like the prototypical great pocket passing quarterback. But you also look at some of those things, the not being able to make throws at all the different levels, at that shorter and intermediate level, as a potential red flag and somebody that could be a bust in the NFL. He had a really good season this year at Florida, and he's somebody that is projected as a second-round pick. I could see him being an end of the first-round pick for the Patriots, and somebody that I think that Patriots fans would actually end up being disappointed, and they'd rather, the Patriots take one of those quarterbacks they talked about earlier for sure, And if they don't, then to fill another position of need as opposed to go with a guy who's looked at as more of a question mark in Kyle Trask. So that's those are the quarterbacks there. And you know what? I'm going to actually, sorry, my mistake. I'm going to throw in a couple more guys that I just saw are being added as potential Patriots targets. These are more second round guys. I'm not a huge fan of either of these guys. I'm going to talk about right now too. First is Davis Mills out of Stanford. I saw him play a lot as a Pac-12 fan and Oregon alum. He's a Stanford quarterback. Was never particularly impressed. Very, very, very high recruit out of high school. 6'3", 217. He's got that perfect quarterback measurements. High ceiling. Again, it seems like there's some untapped potential with him. He did only start 11 games. He's been hurt a lot. His accuracy has been a little bit all over the place. I think a lot of GMs are looking at this as he didn't necessarily have the greatest supporting cast at Stanford while he was there. Maybe if he was healthy a little bit more, he would have figured things out and reached that lofty potential as his high school recruiting ranking would have indicated. This is a guy that I think is probably going to end up as a late second, early third round pick, a guy that certainly the Patriots will have their eye on as a potential value. But again, not somebody I think Patriots fans would be particularly excited about getting as the quarterback of the future when you have guys like Mac Jones and Justin Fields being talked about as potential targets instead. The other guy rumored to be interested in the Patriots interested in is Kellen Mond at Texas A&M, which has produced some really high-level quarterbacks in recent history. 6'2", 211. He is a very, very strong arm. He is mobile, a guy who coaches rave about as the first person in the locker room, really eager to improve. Somebody that is, trying to work on every single flaw of his game and improve that. That sounds like a guy that the Patriots would absolutely love to have. They love those coachable guys. Cons, though, his footwork is sort of sloppy and all over the place. I do think that's stuff that can get coached out, but it might take a while. He hangs in the pocket a little bit too long, relying on, he is athletic and he's very strong. And I think sometimes he's a little bit overconfident in the pocket to the point where he gets pressured too late and then will make an errant throw or will take a sack for, that you obviously don't want the team to be taking. So he's looked at it as a project. This is a guy that has, I think, high potential, but is not ready to come in the NFL and start by any means, and is probably at least, I'd say, 2 years away from really being able to help a team as a team starting quarterback. So again, someday I could see the Patriots taking in the second or third round. Maybe at the end of the first, if they trade all the way back towards in the 30, 32 range. But again, somebody who I think that Patriots fans would be disappointed of when you're talking about a Justin Fields or a Mac Jones, because those guys much more ready to come in and contribute. Again, Mond seems like he's a couple of years away from being able to do that, and Patriots fans want to win now. So that's a list of the quarterbacks. Some of them I like more than others. My favorite of that group, honestly, is Trey Lance. I don't think the Patriots are going to be able to nab him. I'm in love with the potential. And maybe I'm a sucker and I'm falling too in love with the potential of a guy who played at the subdivision level. But I just think that rare combination of unbelievable arm strength and athleticism is something that if you can have at that quarterback position, sets you up for Super Bowl runs for a decade plus. And you're going to have to be competing with the Kansas City Chiefs, who have their guy already in Patrick Mahomes and aren't going anywhere. And you need to get a quarterback who can compete at that sort of level. And I think Trey Lance gives you the opportunity to have somebody like that. So he's my favorite of the bunch. I really am high on a lot of quarterbacks in this class. Justin Fields, I'd be thrilled with. Mac Jones, I'd be thrilled with too. The other guys, if I'm looking at Trask, Mond, and Mills, I'd like to go with Mond the most, even though I think he's the furthest away from being ready. I do think he offers the highest ceiling. Let's go to a position we know the Patriots love and that they've actually been pretty successful in drafting, and that's linebacker. I think that they're looking always to improve their linebacking core, and there's some damn good ones coming out. This guy being the consensus number one linebacking prospect in the draft, Micah Parsons out of Penn State, 6'3", 246. looking at his pros, he is a machine tackling, just absolutely a surefire tackler, racked up tackles at Penn State, does not let anybody out of his grasp. Leadership, captain of the Penn State football team, commanded that defense, called the plays for them, is a guy that comes from a great tradition of Penn State linebackers. You know that school produces high-level linebackers like clockwork. So you feel very comfortable that he'll be able to come into the NFL without any issue playing in a system that's produced guys at that position consistently for like 30 years. He can play coverage or on the line, which is what linebackers are being asked to do more and more often now, is that you need to be versatile. So he can get down on in a stance and rush the passer, get after the running back, or you can put him in coverage. He's got fantastic, unbelievable speed at his position. So he can cover wide receivers. He can stick with tight ends, and he can cover running backs out in the flat. Really, everything you could want in a linebacker is what Micah Parsons provided. If you're looking at the cons, they're kind of nitpicky. He sat out last season, which I think a lot of players did as a smart decision with the coronavirus and with the risk of injuries. He was a surefire first round pick no matter what. So why not? But people are going to look at that as a non-competitive thing. I don't. Linebackers become a little bit less important as teams throw the ball more and more and more and run the ball less. Again, nitpicky. That's just sort of, if you're going to pick really high in the draft, do you go with a position that's become a little bit less important, or do you try to, make a big swing and get a quarterback, or you get a wide receiver or corner? As linebackers have become, again, rushing the passer has become a little bit less important and defending the run, because quarterbacks are throwing so much more often, and the run and the pass protection has been so much more advanced. But Micah Parsons, basically a perfect linebacking prospect. Here's a guy. The next guy is a guy I think that the Patriots will be all over. Basically a sort of like a Gerard Mayo, Dante Hightower, Jamie Collins amalgam. Jamin Davis from Kentucky, 6'3", 234. I mean, look at this dude. Pros, he's an incredible athlete, very, very short tackler. And look at the abs. You can just see the abs. That's what's not to like about that. So you have to take into account that dude is ripped, and why not draft a guy who looks like that? Cons, I just am fantasized by the abs, and that's not even like, I'm not saying this in a weird way. It's just like that dude looks like a beast. Cons, limited starting experience, only one real year as a every down starter on defense. So lack of experience, and that seems to be the case for a lot of these guys, is that lack of experience is a con. Questionable in coverage. He hasn't been asked to do it that much at Kentucky. So you don't know. And if you're a linebacker in the NFL now, you need to be really good in coverage. So all the intangibles seem to pop out for Davis, who I think will be available at 15. He'll be probably in the 15 to 25 range. And the Patriots love linebackers, and he sort of checks off a lot of their boxes. Another guy, and this is a good linebacking class, and this is the last of those guys, is Zaven Collins out of Tulsa. This guy is an absolute beast. He's been mock draft anywhere from 10 to about 20. He's 6'4", 260 out of Tulsa. Versatile gets. Was asked to cover basically every position, rush the passer, do whatever, play on the line, play defensive end, play tackle, play linebacker, inside, outside, play some safety, did everything. He's got a nose for the ball. He got a bunch of interceptions from his position, forced fumbles. He can rush the passer, as I mentioned. Cons, really just one, that Tulsa isn't in a Power 5 conference, and that he played against, I guess, lesser competition, but really nothing that sticks out as a con for this guy. Zaven Collins, again, somebody who would check off a lot of boxes for the Patriots as their sort of linebacker of the future, especially as Dante Hightower is getting towards the end of his career. The Patriots want that next sort of linebacker to be able to be the anchor of their defense, as they've loved to have. And they went from Bruschi to Mayo to Hightower as that guy. And it looks like they're probably in the market for the next guy, and they'll have, I think, any of those guys that I just mentioned, Davis, Parsons, and Collins, could all be available at 15. And don't be surprised if the Patriots were to grab one of those guys there, as they've shown that they love to grab that position, and they are very, very good at scouting that position, fortunately. Let's go to a position now that they have not scouted with, talking about some of my favorite wide receivers in the draft. And the two guys, I'm just going to talk about the two Alabama guys. The first of which is Jaylen Waddle, 5'10", 177 out of Bama, the national champions. Pros, he is as fast as anybody in this draft, just lightning quick. He is his deep ball tracking is elite, meaning that he is getting there, and he is able to get his eye on the ball, 60, 70 yards down the field, no problem, and snag it. He can return punts, he can return kicks, so he's versatile as a special teams player as well. Once he gets the ball, he's a real bitch to tackle. He's really just freaky, elusive. So if you see him with some grass in front of him, he's basically gone. You have no chance. He's that fast and that elusive. He will be a very fun player to play with in Madden. Cons, he's a little undersized at 5'10", not that typical tall receiver. He does have an injury history this year. He was sidelined for a lot of these seasons with an ankle. Not a great blocker. Wasn't asked to do that a lot at Alabama. Just really sort of, get out and run. So not the most varied route runner either. But, I mean, just insanely fast, great hands. A guy that can, you love this is a cliche, but take the top off the defense. And is somebody that certainly could help the Patriots if they have a quarterback who is able to throw the deep ball. Cam Newton, I don't think, is the right fit for a quarterback for Jaylen Waddle, because he's really somebody that you need to be able to air the ball out to. Let's talk about his teammate, the Heisman Trophy winner, Devante Smith, 6'1", 170. And look at that catch against LSU. Pros, yeah, he won the Heisman. You know how often wide receivers do that? Never. That it is as rare as not even a blue moon. What's rarer than a blue moon? And he deserved it. I mean, he was dominant this season at the wide receiver position, just absolutely shattering records in the SEC, putting up one of the best seasons for a wide receiver in the history of college football. He is the best route runner in this draft, and it's not close. He's one of the best route runners you will ever see coming out of college. Everything is picture perfect. A lot of people compare him to Marvin Harrison, who had obviously a great Hall of Fame worthy career for the Indianapolis Colts. There's not a single route that this guy can't run, and he does it to perfection. That's the type of guy that typically is able to get into the NFL as a wide receiver and produce immediately. Phenomenal hands. Again, look at that catch, that one-handed catch. You're not going to find somebody who is more short-handed than him, but he does have a couple of cons. He's extremely skinny. I mean, you can see in that picture, look at his legs, look at his arms. He's a twig, kind of built like Kevin Durant, except for he's a lot shorter. And his strength is, because of that, not great. So you worry about him getting jammed as a receiver on the block by a bigger, linebacker, or by a bigger cornerback, and you worry about him as a blocker. But he's such an unbelievable route runner that it really makes up for that. I look at him as a can't miss wide receiving prospect. I just think that he's that level of production at Alabama isn't a fluke. It's somebody that he also, keep in mind, he was supposed to be the second receiver in that team, and when Waddle went down, he stepped into that first position and didn't make a beat. He just missed a beat. He just got better and better. So this is a gamer. I don't think he's going to be available for the Patriots at 15. If he is, they should jump to the podium and grab him. But yeah, he's my favorite receiver in the class, and just watch highlights. You can see why. Also, great nickname, the Slim Reaper. So we've talked about wide receivers. We've talked about linebackers. We've talked about quarterbacks. I'm going to give you a position that I think is extremely likely the Patriots go with for one of their first couple picks, either the first pick in the first round or their pick in the second round. And I think that's going to be defensive back. So let's look at a guy who has some history with the Patriots, namely his father. That's Asante Samuel Jr., 5'10", 180 corner out of Florida State. Pros, NFL pedigree, as I just mentioned. Dad played for the Patriots very, very well. Pro Bowl level cornerback for the Patriots. Won a couple Super Bowls with them. Very, very high football IQ. So obviously knows the game from his dad very well. Was very, very effective at Florida State. Cons, he is a little bit undersized for his position at just 5'10", 180. With bigger receivers, he may struggle as they can overpower him or get up over the top. You hope that he makes up for that with that sort of football IQ. But having that pedigree of his dad being with the Patriots and being in a position of need, I think that the Pats love that sort of stuff, and that he's somebody that I could absolutely see them taking. Again, not at 15. I think that would be too big of a reach. But if they trade back into the first round, I think that he's somebody that will be there as a late first, early second round pick, and somebody that you should definitely keep an eye on because of that Patriots connection. He's a target for the team, and I think fills a need because the cornerback position in the NFL is basically like 3-point shooters in the NBA. You can never have enough of them. That's the way the game is played now. Quality cornerbacks are at a premium, and the Patriots like to kind of sort of recycle them. Bring them in, they earn a big contract, then they want more money, then they go bring in another guy, and so it goes. And I think Asante Samuel Jr. would fit the bill there. Let's look at another of the top two cornerback prospects right now. J.C. Horn is considered by most to be the best prospect in this draft for cornerbacks. 6'1", 205 out of South Carolina. Tremendous positional size. That's a big cornerback there at 6'1". Very, very strong tackler. Was asked to play a lot of one-on-one at South Carolina and excelled at shutting down often the opponent's best wide receiver. So he's got that lockdown potential that you look for in a cornerback. Cons, only 2 interceptions, which is pretty low for that type of corner, especially in college. So you wonder if he doesn't necessarily have a great nose for the ball. And maybe he's just more of a coverage guy as opposed to a turnover guy. And also a little get grabby with wide receivers, can pick up those penalties that you see in the NFL that really set your team back at much more at the pro level than at the college level. Because pass interference, obviously, in the NFL is a spot foul versus in college, it's a 15-yard penalty. So that's something to have to be wary of. If a guy is too grabby with a corner's too grabby with wide receivers, it works well in the college ranks, but not so well in the NFL. The other guy who's the consensus top corner in this draft is another dude who has a great NFL pedigree. That's Patrick Surtain, the second. You remember his dad played on the Dolphins for a while, a Pro Bowl cornerback, really, really outstanding for a 10-plus year NFL career. He's 6'2", 206. Again, great football genes. Really, really great size for that position. 6'2", 206 is like the absolute perfect size for a cornerback in today's NFL because he's big and strong enough to play with the big guys who try to, get those jump balls, but he's also fast enough to stick with the smaller, speedier guys who might play in the slot potentially. He's got ideal size, like I said, great ball instincts, really a ton of pass breakups in college. I think 23 last year, 4 interceptions last year. So really has a nose for the ball. Cons, played a lot of press coverage, so not super varied in the coverage. That's really, really nitpicky. And another con of his, which isn't really a con, it's that he played on that Alabama team that every defensive player was dominant. So I guess you could wonder, is he a product of that, or is he a product of being just really great individually? Again, you have to find some sort of nitpick with everybody. I think that's basically nothing, but I had to put something up there. Looking at a couple other defensive backs that I like in this draft, because I think the Patriots are going to be in the market for a safety now that Patrick Chung's retired. So why not go with Javon Holland, the guy who went to the same school as Patrick Chung and myself, 6 feet tall at 207 out of Oregon. Pros, great education. You cannot ask for a better education than the University of Oregon. Just A1, top notch. He's going to be a fantastic person and player coming out of Oregon, without a doubt. strong and physical, a guy who will play really, really hard, move wide receivers off if asked to play press coverage. And he's got great ball skills, plays like a center fielder out there, which is what you want out of the safety position. Gets a lot of interceptions, a lot of pass breakups. Cons, he did sit out last season, I think, which a lot of people questioned because he was not a surefire first-round pick, and I don't think he will be this year. I think he's going to be in the mid-second range. So I think he could have improved his stock, and people looked at it as might as well come back to improve your stock, but he played it safe. So I think some people will question that there. And also, he does lack a little bit of elite level speed. He's not the fastest safety that you'll find on the draft board. But I do think he makes up for that with his nose for the ball, and he plays really hard. He was also a really good basketball player in high school, so he's a good athlete. He knows how to time his jumps well, which helps him with intercepting the football. And again, a guy who the Patriots I'm sure we'll look at because he has that connection to Oregon, and Patrick Chung knows him well, and I'm sure Patrick Chung's recommendation at that same position would carry a lot of weight. The top safety in this draft is out of TCU. Trayvon Moehrig, 6'2", 208. Mel Kiper is in love with this dude. Pros, very strong ball skills too, which you need to have as a safety. Great range covering the field from sideline to sideline. He is as good of an athlete as you'll see at that position. He covers a lot of ground really quick. He's asked to play single coverage from the safety position sometimes, oftentimes at college at TCU, and excelled at that, which is rare for a safety. Cons, he's not the most sure tackler in the world, a little bit overconfident in his ability as a tackler. And so that could be a concern at the next level. But most people consider him to be a no-brainer as the first safety off the board. He's probably going to be a late first-round pick. Again, somebody that don't be shocked if you see the Patriots take a safety with their first pick. If it's this guy, if it's Trayvon Moehrig at TCU, or if they trade back and like Javon Holland. I think with Chung leaving, it opens up the hole there. McCourty's only getting older, you spent your first pick last year on Kyle Duggar, who had a nice first season. So you're looking to maybe get some more youth and athleticism in that defensive backfield. Again, you can't have enough good guys. Only a couple more things here before we get out of here. Just a couple guys I really like. This guy out of Miami, Gregory Rousseau. I mean, look at that picture. How could you not like this guy? He's a guy who also sat out last season, 6'7", 266 out of Miami, Florida. Sack machine was 2 years ago, was second only to I'm losing the guy's name out of Ohio State, who ended up being the second overall pick. Regardless, sack machine, Gregory Rousseau, absolute beast. Chase Young, that's who I was thinking of. I think he had 15 and a half sacks 2 years ago in Miami. Great size and length, 6'7". Look how long his arms are. You can see in that picture with that 305 chain he's got. He is big and strong and can use those arms to get to the quarterback. Cons, like a lot of these guys, sat out last season. Hard to blame them. Inconsistent effort on run defense has been a con on his. More of a guy who really wants to get those sacks and get to the quarterback. Could care a little bit less about pursuing the running back. I think that's something that we coached out. I love this guy's personality. I love that he is able to get after a quarterback and has such ideal size for the position. Another guy at that position that you could see the Patriots taking in the first round. I think Rousseau would be a little bit of a reach at 15, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they did it. This guy, same thing, Kwity Paye out of Michigan. Patriots have had success drafting guys out of Michigan. They do seem to have a pipeline there and trust the program. He's 6'3", 270, very highly touted coming out of high school, phenomenal athlete. Ton of untapped potential. Has got a very, very high ceiling. Pressures the quarterback well. Cons, he did not have that much production at Michigan and was sort of a letdown based off of all that potential. He needs to improve his football IQ, his awareness of diagnosing plays. And so that's more of a potential play. But again, keep an eye on those Michigan guys because the Patriots seem to like them. They seem to trust what Harbaugh is doing there in terms of producing NFL-ready players, and they've gotten a couple good hits from there the past few years, specifically Vinovich and Uche. So Michigan is producing guys that the Patriots want to draft. Last guy I want to talk about, just to wrap up the show, is a guy known as Baby Gronk from Penn State. Pat Freiermuth. I know the Patriots signed 2 great tight ends this offseason, and you don't think they'll be in the market for a tight end, but this guy offers a potential Pro Bowl level player who I think will be available for them in the second round should they choose to get him there. Obviously, the top tight end prospect is not Kyle Pitts is not going to be in the Patriots' reach unless they trade up to like 4 to get him. I mean, he's generational. Pat Freiermuth, though, I think going under the radar because Kyle Pitts is such a great prospect. People aren't talking about Freiermuth. 6'5", 251 out of Penn State. Big target. Great route runner from Massachusetts, by the way. So he's got a Patriots connection there. Excellent hands. Basically anything thrown in his direction, he catches. 2-time captain, so that leadership ability you look for with Penn State. He's not particularly elusive. Mediocre speed. He's a work in progress as a blocker. But a lot of comparisons to Gronk, especially coming out of high school and his first major year playing out of Penn State. He was unstoppable. Last year, he had some injuries and wasn't as productive as Penn State really struggled. But this is a guy, I think, who checks off all the Patriots boxes in terms of what they look for at tight end and is a much higher level tight end prospect than some of the guys they drafted the past couple of years, like Ossie. Freiermuth, I think, could project as a Pro Bowl level tight end. That, again, don't be surprised to see the Patriots draft him and have a third viable tight end if they take him in the second round. So it should be really interesting to see what they do. If you want my guess as to what the Pats do today for round 1, I always think it's a safe bet to say trade back. And I know that sucks and nobody wants to hear it, but they love value and Belichick loves that trade back. So 15, typically a lot higher than they draft. I think that they'll see offers that they don't usually see for their pick. I could see them, trading back and getting one of those safeties, one of those edge rushers towards the end of the first round or early second round, maybe picking up another second round pick. That's my guess. I'd love for them. My dream scenario is for them to get one of those quarterbacks because I would just like to be excited about the future of the team in terms of that position. So I don't think that they'll have the ability to draft Fields, Jones, or Lance at 15. I think they'll all be gone before then. And I just don't see them coughing up the assets to trade up that high. I kind of hope they do. I think it's worth it to do it for a quarterback, maybe not at other positions. But I think that thanks, everybody, by the way. Jake, I see you. Leonard, I see you in the chat. Thanks for stopping by. I think that that's ultimately what they're going to do is trade back. I'm sorry to say it. I'm going to say they trade back and they draft a cornerback towards the end of the first round. That's my prediction. With the Patriots, any prediction is basically not worth anything because they, as I said at the top, nobody seems to ever know what they're going to do. We will see. I will definitely talk about it. I'll talk about it tomorrow and I'll give you my reaction, get some of your guys' reaction, and see exactly what the Pats are going to do. I'm excited. It's one of the most exciting drafts I can remember because there's so many great quarterbacks in it, because the Patriots need a quarterback, because they're drafting higher than usual, because they spent all this money in the offseason. Now you got Jimmy Garoppolo rumors, you got Aaron Rodgers rumors. It's perfect for the draft. Should be a really fun night. So everybody enjoy it. I will probably be tweeting a lot during it. So check out my Twitter right below there at JetStryer. Remember to like this video. Remember to subscribe to my channel. Tell your friends. I really, really appreciate it. And enjoy the draft, everybody. We'll talk about what the Pats do tomorrow. See ya.